If you're interested in learning how I launched Zim Excellence, then you're in luck. Sign up for my podcast workshop and learn how it's easier and more affordable than ever to start a podcast. Also, grab yourself a copy of my podcast resource guide, which covers industry terminology, suggested tech setup, in addition to countless free online resources to support your podcast journey. Just head to wongai.com/podcast creation. That's wongai.com/podcast creation. The link will also be down in the show notes. Now, let's start the show. The following episode was recorded on the 14th of May, 2022. We apologize for the delay. Please enjoy. Yo! Welcome to the party! Hello, Makadini Salibonani. My name is Wongai, and you're listening to Zim Excellence, a weekly celebration of Zimbabwe's changemakers and trailblazers. So here's the secret, y'all. Zimbabweans are actually dope AF, and it's just time that we recognize it. So grab yourself a plate of sadza and grab that stony ginger beer, and let the party begin. Welcome to another episode of Zim Excellence. Today, my guest is someone who wears many hats. As an actor, her stage credits include Liberian Girl at the Royal Court, her one-woman show, So What If I Dance, which debuted at Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and most notably Moaning, Myrtle and Rose Granger Weasley in the original cast of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on the West End. On screen, however, she recently guest starred on the Netflix series Top Boy, as well as Everything I Know About Love for BBC, and may or may not have an upcoming role in the Marvel Universe. NDAs, y'all. NDAs. That's all we gonna say. Aside from acting, she has choreographed for the chamber rock band Chrome Hook and the music video for Cool Kids by Choir. She's also the founder of Bantu Creatives, through which she has produced the short films, and I always find it difficult to say this word, Nganga, and Meet, which is in pre-production, as well as the music video We Roll by Shingai. Last but not least, she hosts the Black Actors Accent Room, which is a monthly workshop where actors of color have affordable access to authentic accent training. Please welcome Chipo Kureya. Or should I say Dame Chipo? I have to give her honors, everyone.
Dame, we like Dame. We're manifesting things out here.
It is so great to have you on the show.
Hey, you just gassed me so big. I'm sweating buckets. I'm like, what? Is she gassing me?
You have to tell people how we met, which is like so funny. So there is this website called We Audition where actors come on where they need help for their auditions. And my eyes happened to see a review. And the review was basically like, thank you so much, Chipo. You were amazing. And I'm like, Chipo? That's a Zimbabwean name. And I'm like, who is this lady? Where's this woman? Why can I never catch her? And then I finally caught her online, requested her for 2 seconds to say, hi, you're Zimbabwean. I'm Zimbabwean. I'm following you on Instagram. Bye. And I probably came off so weird.
No, but I love it. I love those kind of interactions and serendipitous, synchronistic stuff. And that website is really cool. I don't know if you're allowed to name drop what it is, but it's really a great space to keep your equipment sharp and meet people. And I'm grateful for it because we get to be right here, right now.
Yes, and that's how we met each other. As I said, Chipo, Dame Chipo. I'm just gonna call you Dame Chipo for the rest of this podcast. Okay, so Dame Chipo, again, wonderful to have you on the show, an honor. Before we get into all the wonderful good stuff about your amazing career and fabulousness, I'd love for you to take us back in time. Were you born in Zim, or you moved when you were a baby? Tell us all that jazz.
I'm like ultimate diaspora. It's like I was born in the UK, in Lucian Hospital, South London.
She from South London, y'all.
South London, late 80s. We'll just leave it there. What's always interesting about my being born here story is being in a predominantly white country, you're always sort of with that whole where you really from question. And of course, because I am very black presenting, being from South London sometimes hasn't been good enough a response. But my parents were born in Rhodesia. Call it Zimbabwe now, but at the time, we did not have our liberation as of yet. So they actually came into this country in the 70s as Rhodesians. Saka, they came here as British citizens. So I like to mess with people often and say, I'm British through and through. Both my parents are British. So but obviously we know the truth. Colonies aside, Salisbury-born parents, Harare that is now. Yeah, that's where it all began. South London, Lewisham Hospital, 1980 something.
Remind me of my teachers at acting school that were like, back in 19 blah, blah, blah. And then they would do the whole thing. Because you are an excellent superhero, what is the origin story of Dame Chipo?
When I think about the first moment of understanding, like what it means to tell story, and in my household is just an incredible orator. My father could go on for days. You get him on the wrong day, like you'll be there for a long time. Okay, he can talk and talk. And my mum is a social person, so she's around people all the time. She's got that skill. And I've just been blessed to be in a family where people love people and people are stories. Every single person carries such a huge level of detail and experience. And I think being an actor is such an honor because you get to really delve into humanity. Our job is to express the real feelings that people are going through, the real experiences, and it affords me the opportunity to actually do the research about what it means to be a plumber, a road sweep, a politician, an optician, a surgeon, all of these different worlds. So maybe it's because I'm greedy that I ended up becoming an actor, because I just want to live all the lives. Getting to do this once, this time anyway, I still feel greedy for every experience of all the other lives that we have the potential for living. Well, maybe that is one thing. What do you think?
It reminds me of one of my joking reasons of why I do this show is because I'm nosy and I want to know all the things and know all the things about all the people, and people just very much interest me. Do you recall a moment in your childhood or teenhood? Obviously, you are still a teenager like me, where you were like, oh, I just really love performing. I really love arts. I really feel seen. I really feel understood. I know for me, it was when I was 16. I always wanted to be an actor before that. But like I felt, oh, I know like deep in my soul that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, because I feel like I'm flying and I feel like I'm most myself. And that was when I was 16 doing Shakespeare. I have such a deep love for Shakespeare. It's ridiculous, a dead white guy. But he does this really great job of noting all the classes, and it just translates to so many cultures. Do you recall a memory?
I recall lots of memories. I remember being so young, maybe even 5 or 6, and walking with my sister to a bus stop in South London, and she asked me what I wanted to be, and I was so young that I don't even know how I knew to say actor, but I knew. I just knew for some reason that's what it was. And later, when the fear had kind of in, and my mother asked me, what I wanted to be, and I said I wanted to be like a psychologist or something because everyone I knew was crazy and they needed sorting out or fixing. So there's this weird dichotomy of like that gut feeling of understanding and knowing when you're so young and so clear, and then what the mind turns that into. And on this journey, it's kind of about that. It's both of those things because I get to understand the human condition more by being an actor. Understand that through that my 5-year-old lens. And aside from all of those things, I'm in a deeply artistic family. So many people in my family are connected to the arts and involved and are performative in so many ways. Despite the fact that I may have thrown my dad under the bus about being in a bit of a chat box or orator, he's actually provided a really great foundation for that, because he's got a real job. He's a doctor. Do you know what I mean? Like, as global majority of people in the diaspora, we've not felt the freedom to go into culture because it's too important for us to get a job, like be a lawyer, be a doctor, engineer.
Wait, engineer? I've never heard that one before. I know I've heard be a nurse, be a doctor, be a lawyer, like the big ones. Do something that's going to bring in money.
Precise money, security, just that kind of sense of safety that you're going to be okay. And I think there's so much to blame for that, like colony and fear and oppression and what we've all gone through. And it's in our bones and it's in our DNA. But I was really afforded the luxury of two parents who stayed together, loved each other in this whole diversity thing. Dad who gave me the opportunity to feel free to do what it is I want. Some people might hear that and think spoiled brat, and I've got that feeling in my life that, oh my gosh, she just does what she wants. It's because I've got these specific set of circumstances that it's a responsibility that I do what I want, that I live a life that fulfills the dreams of my ancestors, that I can really live as full and many varied experiences of life that I can. At first it was a call, a desire, an unknowing. Then it was a desire to understand stories and people. And now I feel it's a responsibility for storytelling and just to connect to each and every person's humanity. I love it. I love my work, man.
What you're saying is very much that first generation struggle of people not understanding. And as you're saying, it's this responsibility that you have. I feel the same way. It's gotten to the point, especially with what happened with 2020, like the beginning of the pandemic, and it unearthing all the stuff that was there on such a large microscopic level, and all of us having all these discussions about race and inclusion and identity and all of that stuff, where I feel it's liberation work. At this point, I have this wonderful poster. I'm a huge fan of Elaine Welteroth. So she had this project that she had to do at school where she had to show her family. Her dad is white and her mom is Black. And she had all these magazines in her school. And mind you, she's probably like one of the only Black children and biracial children in the class. So she was confused, all these magazine cutouts, and everyone's just like white. So she just had to collage with what they had at the school. She comes back home and her mom is, we're going to fix this. They get the Jet magazines and Essence and all of that. They're cutting out photos. Black brother, Black mom, white dad. There you go. And then the mom would put it up on Elaine's bedroom wall so that she would be able to see herself when she woke up. Based off of that, I created a poster of just Black women in the entertainment industry and actors who I think are just absolutely powerful, doing amazing things, who I admire. That way, when I woke up, I would be able to see all these amazing women and be able to see myself and remind myself what's possible for me. So what's really interesting is when I decided to create that collage, Elaine was in one of the magazines. And I was like, yes, I'm my girl, Elaine Welteroth. And she had this quote about why it's important about not only creating your own space, but being in spaces where we traditionally weren't seen. So I have this whole thing we can talk about, build your own table, don't be looking for a seat at the table. I'm like, do all of it. Be in all those spaces, create your own spaces, because it's important. You see it in the fact that 50% of all podcast listeners are women, but less than 50% of podcast shows are hosted by women, and then even less by Black women and African women. So basically, all that to say is I agree with you. It's important for people to be able to see themselves and see what's possible for them and not be like pushed into boxes of, oh, you're Black or you're African, you're Zimbabwean and you're a woman. These are the jobs you're only ever going to do. No, that serves no one.
Not only that,
yes,
space for one, as if Yahoo was thinking that and Google was like, oh no, Yahoo already serves that purpose. AOL already serves. And I think that's still a huge struggle because so often especially when you are diaspora and you're, only one in a space. So I was the only black ballet kid. I was the only black one there. I was the only one. It can feed into your subconscious into believing that in order to succeed, there can only be one of you. And that's so detrimental to our growth and our sisterhood as well. And I think it's far too simple to be like, oh yeah, Queen C, Queens, when really hundreds of years of conditioning has actually taught us the opposite. These institutions have taught us the opposite. And even this person, she had to work so hard. She had to go home, then like propped up by her mother to be seen. But when you're in the workplace and you do that and you're fed these other images where there's just tokenism, it makes it even more important, the kind of work that we're doing, because it's not good enough for there to be one and I'd be brave and you be brave. More of us need to be brave. And I heard a quote earlier today from Larry Moss, another white guy. He said, when I say there is only one of you in the world, it will never happen again. Like, I don't know if you even get it or if everyone gets it, but like me saying to you right now that there's...
Oh, trust me, this moment we're having will never happen again in the way that it's happening and unfolding right now. Girl, I'm spiritual. I'm spiritual. You preach to the choir. I live for this stuff.
You're ahead, because that I had to hear that a few times. Hold on a second, because people want to, even at the beginning of this call, you're like, oh girl, she did this, she did that. Yeah, I did that. But what about right now? There's only me right now. There's a choice I'm making right now. Am I going to fold and just go back and have a nap, which is so easy to do?
It reminds me of this quote. I think it was Deepak Chopra. Something about if our mind is on the future when we're in the present, then when we're in the future, our mind will be in the past. Basically, be present. And it's a recurring theme, especially when it comes to performance and creating and acting, where you have to be present with your scene partner because anything could happen. Just like in real life, you have to be present because anything could be unfolding. Just like right now, we're practicing listening with each other. And sometimes that can be hard for me because I'm like, oh, you just made me think of something. And I'm like, no, listen.
Yeah, no, that's really tough. And there are a lot of professional actors out there who actually haven't got that concept down, that listening. And there's a book by an incredible director, and it's called Different Every Night. Have you heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
It's an acting text by an incredible director whose name I've forgotten. But the notion of being different every night means that you're present every night. You're present for what happens in that moment. But the unfortunate thing about being in, let's say, a West End production, don't know which one, or any one of these big shows, or even going to somewhere like McDonald's. Let's use a different example. Every time you go there, you expect it to be the same. You don't want your Big Mac to taste differently. That's what's called branding, isn't it? So if you go into a West End production, people are expected to hit the same marks every night. They're supposed to sing the song in the same way because that's called being consistent. But there's a magical middle ground of being consistent and being honest and truthful about what you're performing and delivering, but also allowing the moment to take hold of you. And that's why we need trained people to be doing this kind of work. That's why we need directors who don't expect actors to be pawns that are just moved around, but listening full human beings that are sharing something very vulnerable on stage. I worked with an actress once who, I don't like her at all. I'm not going to name her name, but I remember we were rehearsing a scene and she was angry because I did something different and she wasn't expecting it. And for the rest of the time I was working with her, she was frustrated with me because I was throwing her under the bus. Now, who knows, maybe an earlier version of myself probably had more ego inside of her, but there's also a part of me that thinks this person I was working with didn't have the flexibility to allow a real moment to happen. So when I was having a real moment with her, it threw her. And that's why you need to really learn your lines by rote. Okay, people? Anyone on here who is an actor, learn your lines so well that if someone has a real moment with you, you still know what you're doing. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, sometimes it's also,
Yeah.
I feel like it's vulnerability. We're just so afraid as human beings to be so vulnerable and open. So sometimes that triggers people to close up. That might be a whole different discussion
Or
for
blame
another
and
day.
project.
It's also my ongoing lesson.
Yeah.
Yes, we project what we see in other people, forgetting that the other person in front of us is a mirror and sometimes reminds us of the things in ourselves that we're not proud of or that we are proud of. So it's like when you see someone and you think they're amazing, it means there are qualities in yourself that also have that potential. Speaking of the West End, would you like to talk about your time in HP?
Babe, oh, that old chestnut. It was,
I only just because I myself auditioned for a Rose Granger Weasley and went up to the movement call. This was back in 2018 or 2019. I went up to the movement call and girl, I can't dance. And it's not choreography, but it feels like choreography. So they had us doing, first of all, they had us doing, what's it, the planks and all that stuff, which was fine. Luckily, I've trained for planks. We did the planks and the high fives and all that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm prepared. This is like movement class at acting school again. This is great. But then we got to wand dance
I knew you were going to say
and she's
wonder.
doing counts and things. I hadn't seen the show yet. And then when we did it, I was like, nah, it's a wrap. It's okay. I concede. It ain't for me. It's fine. And then years later, I did happen to see the show for free, both parts. And I was like, yep, that's that dance. Couldn't do it. A very physical show to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter was an amazing kind of intersection for me because everything I'd
Mm.
done up until that point, I'd been the center of and a very big deal. Like, I'd done a tour of Rapunzel and I was Rapunzel. I'd done a one woman show and it was me. And I was in this two-hander called Fingertips, which was just about ladies who'd crossed over from Ethiopia and cascaded in like the Mediterranean. Like, I had been
Mm.
really forging my path, but not in a very sort of commercial or very recognized way in the big time. And changed agents, and within 3 weeks of changing agents, I booked HP. It was like a springboard for so many things because being on Harry Potter was such a humbling experience because I was what you call a swing. So it meant that I did the show in so many different capacities. I think in in the nearly 2 years that I was there, maybe 18 months I was there, I did the show in maybe 16 different capacities because you have to cover people who are on holiday, who are sick, who are away. That's why I was able to play Rose Granger Weasley. I was able to play Moaning Myrtle. I was able to play the Dementors. A lot of people have seen that show. And it meant that I knew that show inside out. But it also played into my strength of movement because I am someone who is a mover, who is a dancer. In a room full of actors, I'm a dancer. In a room full of dancers, there's the actor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That show is for you. That show is for you.
So that felt like it was made for me. And it was made for so many parts
Mm.
of me in my journey, in what it meant for the springboard I needed to be in certain rooms, the relationships I created, the capacity to understand different parts of the industry. Like, it was an amazing time to be alive, and there were challenges. There were so many challenges that I
Mm.
had to navigate, and yeah, definitely a lot of challenges. I think I was part of the original cast in 2016, and so that was what 4 or 5 years before George Floyd. Let's just leave it there. Do you know what I mean? So it was before. Yeah, it was before we really had the ease and comfort to speak about things that we're really pushing up against now. I'm
Okay.
proud of myself and of that time, and I'm so grateful that I was at the inception. I was at that period of time where we were making it. We were really creating it because now it has no choice but to be a quality product that is reproduced here, there, and everywhere. So it doesn't mean that the actors are no less alive or present, but it is McDonald's. It is
Mm.
hit the mark here, hit that there, hit there.
McDonald's.
or Dreamgirls or Lion King or any other show that you expect to see at a professional level that is great with fantastic people working because they have to audition to be in it. But being a part of an original company, I don't think there's anything like it. And I really, really pray that I get the opportunity to be a part of another original company like it. It was amazing.
You will. We're manifesting. This is the show where you manifest things and they're like that. We had that moment where I saw you and I was like, another Zimbabwean person? Who is this person? When there are so few of us, you end up being an unintentional ambassador or representative of your country, of your culture, of your heritage. So how do you feel about that? Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you have a message you want to share with the world or you think, ooh, it could be fun to have my own talk show like one guy, getting started is easier than ever. Here at Zim Excellence, we use Buzzsprout, which is hands down the easiest, most affordable, and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Start for free and list your show on directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping and teaching you to succeed. Just check out their YouTube videos. They are filled with tons of information. So join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Sign up today using the link in the show notes or go to wongai.com/podcast creation, and you'll get a $20 credit if you sign up for a paid plan. It also helps support the show. So go ahead, sign up for Buzzsprout, and keep me posted on your new podcast. Now back to the show.
What's that saying? Some are born great, some have greatness thrust upon them, and some become great. I don't know which one I particularly fall into, but because of who I am and why I am and the position and time and space that I live in, I've been afforded this opportunity. Not only is it a responsibility, it's an opportunity. And I echoed this yesterday because I had the immense pleasure of reading a novel. I did an audiobook yesterday. Have you ever done one?
I love an audiobook.
Yeah.
I haven't done an audiobook yet. I've done voiceover. I've auditioned for audiobooks, but I haven't done one yet.
So I auditioned, and because I had a really bad experience with my last audiobook, I was like, I'm going to do a really good audition. So I went to a studio with my uncle, and he helped me with the Shona because it was by a Shona writer, a Zimbabwean writer by the name of Panashe.
Now I'm jealous.
Yeah, her name is Panashe Chigumadzi. Girl's book. I'm going to tell you the title. These Bones Will Rise Again. Can I just?
Already, I'm intimidated.
Like tingles everywhere. I remember reading it the first time and I cried at the end. And then even in the studio yesterday, I got to the end and cried all over again. Like the honor it feels. And I didn't get to read that. If I was not a Zimbabwean woman, I would not have the opportunity, because there are things in only resonate with us who understand the specific struggle, the specific nuances, the specific lack of the rootlessness, the unsteadiness that it means to even be Zimbabwe. Like lots of people can be from Kumusha, Totem, Unoerevachi, all of these things, but there's something also very balancing about being a Zimbabwean. We've gone through some stuff, and it was
resilience.
It's all about resilience building, and that book, being given that responsibility, I don't take it lightly. It was an honor. And it was the first one that I was able to sit through the whole way and just deliver because I am Zimbabwean. And it's mad because I know that there are going to be Arabian ladies out there who get the honor because they speak Farsi, or Nigerian ladies who get the honor because they speak Yoruba, but all I know is me and what I'm doing here, and I got to read that, and that is epic. I'm still buzzing from it, so I have to lift up Panashe because she wrote a banger. And I really can't wait until that book becomes available and you're able to read it, and invite her here as well to talk to.
What does being Zimbabwean mean to you?
Everything is followed by an anecdote. Let me just let you know.
I love this. Earth signs are deep people. We have to take it deep.
Taking it deep all the way. When someone asks you, oh, where you're from, and you cut around all the crap and you're like, yeah, I'm from Zimbabwe, the following conversation always has to take place, and where I explain who I am and how I feel, and just the reading of their expression. You say to someone that you're from Zimbabwe, and then you have to take that second where you figure out like what their opinion is on that. Whether they're like, oh,
Yeah.
are you Shona? And you're like, oh, great, we've got an expert. Yeah, tell me all the stuff you know about.
May I just add, I feel like there are 3 different versions of the answer. It could be like they don't know too much about Zimbabwe, they just know it's Africa, and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to go. Or, oh, I've been to Kenya, which is like nowhere near Zimbabwe. Or there's, oh, so sorry about your country. Usually these are like South Africans, especially white South Africans, who'll then be like, oh, I'm so, how are things? Blah, blah, blah. And then 3, what was the third one? Is, oh, maybe they'll ask you how you feel about a political leader.
Yes, we
or
know who you're
something.
talking about, exactly. And that's why racism is a real thing. That's why we can't beat around the bush and act like we don't live in a white supremacist planet. You know, white people go anywhere on the planet, and for some reason, what they say is taken for gospel, and they need to prove everything that we're saying, despite the fact that we may have receipts and archives or no archives because they've been burnt, or do you know what I mean? So, what I feel about being Zimbabwean is immense pride. Like, proud of who I am. I'm proud of my parents and who they are and what they've gone through. I'm proud of ancestry and totems and balancing rocks and like guns and blood and spirit and drums.
The way you said guns scared me.
No, because I think, and this is definitely something that I got from reading Panache's book.
Yeah.
Sometimes people aren't really honest about what it takes to get freedom. Like really what it takes, what we sacrifice, what we have to go through to ensure that we really are free. Like you and I on this podcast now.
Mm-hmm.
What if our parents didn't? What if our mothers didn't?
Yeah.
What if this? What if that? What is the trauma or the suppression or the silencing of yourself or your opinion or your thoughts that took us being here? So I've got no choice but to be proud of who I am for being alive and present in this moment. And that is Zimbabwean. So I can't really take one away from the other. And if I were Yoruba, if I was a Yoruba person and I was Nigerian, then I'd have to be proud of being that person, or I'd need to go to therapy and discover myself and do the artist's way or whatever it is to become okay with myself. But because I am Zimbabwean and because I am me and I am here, I am proud.
I love that. You've got your wonderful artistic family and a Zimbabwean family around you. So I'm guessing, that's always been a way for you to have Zimbabwean community around you. But how else have you been able to cultivate Zimbabwean community and also artistic community, whether it's like fellow actors or choreographers?
Yeah, no, that has been really tough because my parents came here before Zimbabwe even got independence.
So you're probably one of the first families.
Yeah, so my sisters were born in the UK in 1980. So they were like the first born free, but not born at home. And so it was really, and so at that period of time in the UK especially, to be African was to be asking to be taken advantage of or taken the piss out of or bullied, essentially. It was only fashionable if you were black to be of Caribbean heritage. If anything, you could be was Jamaican. And so there was a community. There was the Africa Centre where my parents met, where everyone who was black just essentially went. Or there was pretending to be Jamaican so that you could fight against the other strains of racism that you would be dealing with in the 80s and 90s.
That is so very real.
So
I remember even like growing up in Beijing, we would want to identify as anything aside from Zimbabwe, which is very shameful to say, but it was like you would rather identify as being faux Asian or being European or being from the Caribbean than say Zimbabwe or like say African. And if you're going to say African, at least say South African or Nigerian or Ghana because they sound cool. And like Will Smith and Beyonce have been out there, but don't say Zimbabwe, which is terrible to say, but that's what it felt like growing up.
lots of countries around the planet were colonized by the French, by the Spanish,
Yeah.
by all sorts. But in Zimbabwe, in that kind of Rhodesia space, we were a lived in colony. That's not the same as what went on in West Africa, where they claimed it and then got their money from the oil and just tried to keep a hold of some stuff. A live-in colony. That means when my mum was born, she was born into a society where she was oppressed in Africa by thousands of white people around her in Africa on the soil of her ancestors. And yet she went to a B school, yet she was told that she can't wear traditional clothes. She can't be afforded a certain kind of education. Her first job was in a hairdresser in the country of her birth in Africa. And she would have to wash the hair through gloves in a wall because they didn't want her black hands touching her hair in Africa. Do you understand what I mean? So conditioning of what we are is not good enough. Mandiona kushipa machikuora. And translated, that means you've seen me dark, or yeah, you've seen my dark skin and you've said that it means I'm rotten. Like it's culture that we should feel shame. Like the shame culture in Zimbabwe is so strong that if I wear the wrong length of skirt, I'm deemed a prostitute. Like even now, people from everywhere else can do what they like, but we have been shamed out of having a culture, shamed out of having a traditional dress, shamed out of so much stuff that it is actually in defiance and maybe narrow that I decide to be proud of I decide to defend myself, and I decide to actually point the finger where it deserves to be pointed. And I will say, we were colonized. We were colonized by white people who came over and told us that the only way to exist is through Christianity and by doing what we do. And that is something that people need to really open up themselves to and admit, because my light-skinned cousin is more favored by my grandmother because of that thing. It's real. It's really real.
Yeah. Colorism is so real.
It's so
I've had these conversations with my biracial cousin. Shout out to her. She's listening to this. I'm not going to name drop her. Back in 2020, I was on the phone with her. I was like, you don't know this, but I used to feel all this type of way when you were around, because I noticed when you're around, this would happen with our other cousins or like with my mom or like whoever. And it just made me feel like, oh, I'm like undeserving in your presence. And that had nothing to do with you. So sometimes I felt this type of way about you. And obviously you didn't know I felt that way. And you weren't doing anything. It was like the people around us were almost pitting light skin and dark skin against each other. And she was just like, that is so interesting you say that. And then she talked about her experience going to school. And she was raised with a lot of like her cousins and like siblings, and they're darker skinned. And so she went and sat with the dark skinned girls, with, I guess you'd say, black but not mixed girls. And everyone was like, oh, why are you sitting with us? Like, why aren't you sitting with the white girls, or why aren't you sitting with the mixed girls? And she was confused. She was like, what do you mean? Because she was raised in a household where everyone around her has a darker. What do you mean I can't sit here?
Yeah,
it's wild.
It is really wild. And I don't
unlearning
something we are going to address or come through easily or soon. But I think it's a conversation that needs to keep happening. And it's a conversation that I need to keep addressing because my partner is a white man. And it's so weird because I've spent so many of my years talking about how they did us wrong and X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, guess where I was born? Yes, I'm Zimbabwean, but I was also born in South London. I was born in this culture. I understand this culture. I speak to my partner and we understand each other in a way that I'm not going to understand my grandmother because she is of a different time and space. Yes, black, but we don't understand each other. I can speak her language just about, but then it starts to get a bit, my hodgepodge language, it escapes me.
I feel like that's why it's important to have these conversations, and moves back to what you said earlier about being the only one and why it's important to do this work. Because when I told someone, and you might know them, that I would tell you off the record when we're not recording, but I told them I was releasing a podcast and I invited them on. They were like, yeah, sure, cool. Yeah, I'll look at the stuff. And then they were like, let me give you some unsolicited advice. And I was like, no, please don't. You're going to ruin the moment. Like I've just told you about. And granted, at that point, I was calling this a secret project. Not many people knew I was planning to launch this podcast last year. So they were like, yeah, there are all these other Zimbabwean podcasts and shows and things. What's going to set you apart? Because I've seen these shows and people don't support them. And I just don't want you to set yourself up to fail. It's like, wow. Like I was hurt by that. I bring this up because that's why I feel it's important to have us from around the world so that we can learn and understand our different experiences and what we're going through, because there's this like assumption that the people who never left, they're just so in tune with their culture and they're like Zimbabwean. And then there's this other assumption that the people who left or were displaced, displacement is also like a great term to use, that were displaced or forced out or whatever. We also have to think about, there's this assumption that like the grass is greener in the West or outside the country, or that people are popping bottles and then they're super rich. There's one portrait where maybe one person's doing well, but then there's also the other portrait of the person who is a nurse or the person who has to work 3 different jobs just to provide for their child in that new life. And they may not have the support of family that you do when you're Kumusha and you have the village behind you. And it's important to hear these things. Like I think about how my mom listens to this and my mom's friends listen to this, and maybe people who've never left the country who are able to begin to understand.
About gaining that perspective, because even if other people have done a podcast and they've fallen on their face, that podcast reached those people. And you don't know those people, but this podcast is reaching these people. And both people deserve to be served, even if they're not served by the same thing. It's not your responsibility to feed everybody. I keep going back to McDonald's and they're not paying me any money or endorsement. But like, it's not up to McDonald's to provide every single person burgers. That's why there is a Burger King.
Yeah, I'm going to Shake Shack.
Yeah, there we go. That's why there is a Five Guys. And it's so crazy because even though so often culturally we believe that those people who never left home are more connected or understand it, they might have more dexterity with the tongue and the language. But I have found it's people in the diaspora who have a hunger for our culture more, that want more of what's going home because they have a full experience and a full understanding of what it means to live in the white man's land or just away from home. They understand what it means to be other or different. And this takes me back to when I got onto a plane, because I went back and forth to Zimbabwe throughout my childhood, but when I was about 8 years old, I stayed for a longer stint, and it was 14 years until I went back to Zim. And I was, 21 or something? And I got off the plane.
She still is 21, y'all.
She's been 21 for time. A long time.
Yes.
So I get off.
Does not age. Vampirism. Anyway.
Moisturize, and UV. Take it for granted that melanin, just sunblock.
And hydration is key. Drinking game, water. Yes, as you were saying, Dame Chipo, you have the mic.
So I get off the plane, and because my kind of pre-teens, teens, very early 20s have been spent in this country kind of fighting for my rights to be alive and to be black and to be Zim, to get off the plane and see black people everywhere blew my mind. Sometimes people in this country don't realize that as people who are born in the diaspora, our minds also get blown when we're in a country where majority people are black. The road sweep, the bank manager, the politician, the teacher, everyone was black. And I could smell it in the air as I got off at the airport, and I cried. I remember crying. It's like, is this what it means to belong? Of course, I learned very shortly that I am Sarad. No.
Exactly. I'm like, belong. Wow, you had a great introduction. Mine was, why you got a British accent? Obviously, they wouldn't say that, but at the time when I first moved to Zimbabwe, I was 8 years old, and I grew up I was in London from when I was a baby till I was about 8, and then we moved back to Zimbabwe, and I had a very, very British, posh North London in the house, North London accent, Muswell Hill, North London accent, and the bullying. Until this day, I'm still untangling that trauma and doing the healing. A lot of healing has been done, but there's some residual stuff that comes out that I'm like, oh, you still have to address that.
Yeah. We have to work so hard because of the work that hasn't been done.
Yeah.
And I spoke about it previously with your podcast, how there's space for that and there's space for this. And I spoke about it with the Queen thing as well. Like, we don't need to be the only one. And so, of course, going back, there might have well been an element of jealousy around those people who didn't have a full understanding of what it meant for you and your displacement. You're needing to go from one country to the next. They didn't embrace you or take care of you in that way because of their own desire to be anywhere but here. That thing that you said about the grass being greener. We are only from having these conversations, opening up our perspectives. Even though I was born in South London, in Lewisham Hospital, I lived there for a lot of my life, but my parents moved to Kent, babe. East and South London, there were other black people. I could have a crew. I could slick my hair down at the sides. I was going to bus stops and holding my hand like this. Once I moved to Kent, suddenly I was the only one. And it wasn't good enough for me to be with the other black girls in the class or go to bus stops and eat chicken from boxes, whatever. Suddenly I was the only one. And there was a responsibility that I felt for being the only one, but there was also the work that I did to almost feel like I deserved it, to sort of the research that I had to do to sort of prove how black I was. It's hard. It's such hard.
Or I'm not that type of black person. I'm the good black person.
Babe.
I'm the educated black person.
That
respectability politics.
That good black crown. We're like, you're the black.
Before we dive into lightning round, because I want to be mindful of your time, I want to hear a lot about, and this actually ties in with what we're talking about, Black Actors Accent Room and all of the work that you're doing there, because that's awesome.
Oh my God, the Black Actors Accent Room is my youngest.
Yeah, we got to talk about it before we let you go.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so being of the global majority in the UK, which is where I'm based, it's voice and accent training is very middle class white lady focused. So any voice accent coaches you're going to find, 80 to 90% of them are going to be white middle class ladies, and that's really important because they've got the time, skill, and they've trained to do that work. But it just means that when you're of the global majority, or when you're a black lady or black guy or from anywhere that's not Lancashire or Ireland or Crewe, your specific voice accent needs aren't being taken care of. And there are so many apps and stuff where they have got lots of courses for Celtic accents, for instance, or American accents, and they are accents via the white lens most of the time, not all. And it just means that as an actor, when you're trying to train your instrument and become as dexterous and strong as possible when you're storytelling, you might not have the resources you need. And I think as a black person, I've always felt like I want to be able to tap into this accent, that accent, because of the stories that I want to be able to tell. And so that's why the Black Actors Accent Room was going to be important, because even when it comes to having an American accent, there's the way that Tiffany sounds in Sweet Valley High, but there's also the way that it sounds in that, and it's different because she black. She's not a white lady, and I just want to make sure that we have access to accents that make the most sense for our needs. And so I've got this room once a month, and we just zoom in on a different accent of the global majority. And the most important thing is that it's accessibly priced. Like when you want to see someone who is a voice and accent coach, it can cost you maybe $70 or £80 or whatever. That's a lot of money for a lot of people who maybe have been told, be an engineer or be a doctor, be a lawyer, because of the global disparity in economy. So having these workshops, it means the price is greatly reduced. For $20, you can participate and really get the tools you need to go back and work on the accent further. And if that's not accessible, £10 means that you don't participate as such, but you get to view and learn from the people who are participating in the workshop. It's about opening your mind to what is possible as a professional actor and as the coach as well, because it's my mission to only employ accent coaches of the global majority. I'll see how far I go.
Which is so fascinating, especially because the way it can sound in everyone's mouth can be so different. And there are so many accents in the South, dialects in the South. I follow this page on Instagram, Afro-Latin Diaspora. It's a page I learned so much about, especially because there's this concept, there's this idea, especially it's been perpetuated in the US, that Latin people, or that being from the Latin diaspora makes it a race. But being Latin is actually an ethnicity, because you can be Latin and white, and you can be Latin and black, and obviously mixed. A lot of people are mixed, but there's this idea that it's a race, but it isn't. And I never thought it was a race, but then I moved here, and then I thought it was a race, because some people will be yeah, I'm also oppressed. I'm Latino, and da, da, da. And so I was oh, okay, it's a race. And then I'll hear it from shout out to my really great friend, Jackie. They were telling me, it was no, you can't talk about, what's it? I forget what term she used. Something along the lines of, if there are black this, then why don't we say there's white this? We never say that. We just say this. And so basically I'm following the Afro-Latin Diaspora page, and it clues me into so much history about the Caribbean and Latin America and just that section of the world, on just how many black people there are, and just also the mixing. There is a huge demographic of Asian people in Peru who obviously visually look Asian and are Asian, but they're also Latino as well. So breaking that down, but then some people will be oh, where are you from? And it's, hey, I'm born and raised here. I literally speak the language. Don't you hear my accent? But then, and that is also interesting to consider. That's how you're yeah, being Latin isn't a race, because
this is the kind of box ticking hodgepodge we're going to be getting really soon. Because like I said to you, I was born here. I speak with this accent. I've got heritage of Zimbabwe. That's my direct lineage. But my kids are going to look very different to me. So they're not going to have the same questions and answers. And what about if the guy I married was an Indian guy? Do you know what I mean? Was that, and he moved to Greenland? People's desire to hold on to a category for individuals is fast getting old. And I don't know when we're going to start allowing ourselves to be human beings and pan-global human beings. How long is it going to be very important? It's important now because of racism. And that's what's making it important, because people's desire to identify, I am here on the pecking order. That means my hair flows, but there's no bounce in my curl. It means I'm here. It means I'm here. It means I can do that. But when is it going to stop being important?
Yeah, so I bring up that Afro-Latin diaspora on Instagram in relation to the fact that the next Zoom will be on the southeast region of the United States, because there was a thread, one of the most recent posts was on, someone had posted about, oh, this is the Louisiana accent. This is how this person sounds. And then someone had said, like on TikTok or something, oh, Britney Spears doesn't sound like that and she's from that region. And then someone then replied to that TikTok in a video being like, Hollywood has made you assume that there is one type of Southern accent or one type of Texas accent or Louisiana accent or this. You guys need to travel out to the South more because there are like multiple. And she literally went to town talking about like in this one area of the same state, there was an influence of this many people. So if you're from this area, you'll sound more like this. And in this area, there's this. And then the following posts of that thread, you would see people doing like the Mississippi accent, all these different accents to like varying different, like very thick, not so thick. And then also despite like skin color. So, you know, you can have Asian people who sound very Jamaican. And by Asian, I guess you're East Asian. So like traditionally, like we're talking Chinese, Japanese, Korean, that area, sounding very Jamaican because they grew up in the Caribbean. And you can also have white people talking, like sounding how you assume is a black scent, but that's a lot, basically a lot of what feeds into Black culture and the African American vernacular and what we deem Black comes from the South. And we don't give the South enough respect, that sometimes you'll hear someone who's white from the South sounding similar to what you in your mind have considered a Black scent and be like, oh, they're appropriate. And it's like, it's from the South. That's how people in that area sound. And that's fascinating to also untangle for myself.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely appreciate that. And I can't wait for you to send that to me because I want to hear.
Yeah, I'm definitely sending that to you. Okay. Ooh, I have so many questions, but again, I have to let you go soon. One more question and then lightning round. How do you feel about that?
It's okay. I mean,
as Dame Chipo, as in the beginning, when one embarks on the untraditional path, like the artist's journey, it can be exciting, but also potentially overwhelming. What advice do you have for someone listening right now who might be thinking, I want to do what Chipo does, I want to do all the things, I want to dance, I want to sing, I want to act, I want to produce, I want to be a boss bee, but I'm not quite sure where to start? Are there any resources, whether books, podcasts, websites, classes that you can recommend, aside from obviously Black Actors Accent Room?
Yeah, of course. Do you know what? Anyone who wants it will have.
Mm-hmm.
I know that seems like really, almost seems like shitty advice, isn't it? But because it does feel shitty. I'm even saying it and I'm like, it seems shitty, but the resources are there. The classes are there. The podcasts are there. But it's not, I'm not being shitty to be on purpose. I'm not being shitty on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's about you identifying really what you want. Because I feel like I have this conversation with people too often where they're like, oh my God, what should I do? What should I do? And when I get around to it and talk to them, they haven't actually identified what they want. They just want to go having the conversation because they can see that I'm doing something nice, but they don't actually know what it is they want. If you want it, you're going to get it, honey. But that means that you need to take care of yourself. Stop what you're currently doing. If you're not happy, stop what you're currently doing is the first step. And then take some space, even if it's 10 minutes before you'll go to your job that you hate, to think about what is it that has the potential to make me happier than I am right now? What is it that I love to actually do? And do that. And what is it that I'm interested in? And then do that too. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's literally the best advice I can give you, because I can give you a list of all sorts of podcasts, but ain't you got Google? Ain't you got like YouTube, Google, all those things? Classes are there, podcasts are there. Type in acting, type in this, type in writing, type in horse riding, type in producing, type in writing. Turn up at a film set. Do you know what I mean? Stand there. You don't need to work very hard to know where the films are being made. L Street, go there, stand outside. Do you know what I mean? Phone their box office. It doesn't take any. Look, I'm getting angry now because too many people have asked me this question without doing the most simple thing of even identifying
Yes.
what it is they actually want. Do you just want to be rich and famous? Fall down the stairs and put it on TikTok? Do you know what I mean? Like that, it could be that simple because people will watch it 100,000 times. Or is the story important to you? Is writing important? Is presenting important to you? I said it. I said what I
Okay. She said what she said. All right. Are you ready for our lightning round?
Absolutely.
Okay, condensed lightning round. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. I love going to bed. Like, so if I'm out past too late a time, I start to get real crabby. But I can wake up early and do early bird for sure.
Sweet. Okay. Do you have a favorite movie or TV show that you're currently watching or from this past year or the past award season?
At the moment, I'm watching Grey's Anatomy. I've started from the beginning a couple of months ago. So I'm journey. And yeah, I'm here for it.
Okay. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. To time hop.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like you can do that in real time. Quantum jumping is real. Sometimes I feel like, wait, how did we get here?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's something about collecting them receipts or like really having.
Oh, yeah, go back to be like, say, back in 1982.
I'm not being funny, but at exactly this time, yes. No, the first thing that came to my mind was being invisible, but then I thought that's only cheeky. Like, what does that help you apart from just knowing information? And like, I'd probably save on train fare by being invisible. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I can genuinely say.
I want to be, I would at least want to fly. My power, my superpower, I figured this out in a previous episode. I think it was with Munya Chaneta, and then I told Joan Jago about this. My superpower would be like, I'm always listening to music, and a lot of music is sampled. So I'll be like humming something I've heard. I'm like, this is from something, and then I'll figure out what it is. But sometimes I don't figure it out as quick as I want to do. So Joe came up with a name for this. He called it Shazam Brain. And so I was like, yeah, I want to have Shazam Brain where I hear something and I'm like, it samples that.
You know what would be really great? If you could sort of dial for your superpower. There's like good, bad. Like I'd have a full or time hop, and you could kind of adjust how strong your power. So I could go full invisibility, but then I'd have no time hopping capability. Or I'd go like half, so I could only, I don't know, be a little bit invisible, or like maybe, I don't know what the time, the half bit, but I'd only be able to travel a week or two in the past or something. Do you know what I mean?
As someone who is potentially may or may not, hashtag NDAs, y'all NDAs, be joining the MCU, is there a Marvel superhero that you like? Or are you like a DC girl, or you creating your own superhero? You are your own superhero.
Mate, I'm working on this hybrid kind of like dial-it superhero in my mind. Next time we talk, I'm going to have this nailed. I'm going to understand what it means to be able to dial up one super strength and dial down the other.
Wonderful.
Because maybe what happens when you're invisible is that you can go through walls. So maybe like dialing down means that you can't go through the wall. So you've got the thing where you're loud and things are affected, but you're more surreptitious if you're at 100% because you can go through things as well. We're working on it.
Okay. Favorite Zimbabwean childhood snack?
Nongoti, Maputi came to mind straight away because I love popcorn still up to this very day.
That is my number one snack.
Yeah. But the other thing...
And my mom's as well.
...was a mazoe orange. It's not a snack, but...
Pause. It's time for the most controversial question.
She's going...
Mazoe orange versus... Mazoe green.
Hapana contest, Shamari. Orange all day, every day.
Cool. Yeah. I was like, you can't answer the question before I asked it. This is the most important one. Okay. The next one is a power statement. I am Zim Excellence because
It seems so corny. I am Zim Excellence because I am. Like, because I am fully here. I am. I can't
I love
say
it.
anything more than that. I am.
If you could nominate someone for the award of Zim Excellence, who would it be?
My sister. Yeah. Oh my God. I would definitely nominate my.
She's been mentioned on this podcast before, on Yasha Matanda's episode.
Really? No, there's no.
Yeah.
She is incredible in so many ways. And
actually, you have two sisters.
Yeah, they're twins.
I'm going to assume we're talking about the same sister.
Yeah. So the person who you assume we're speaking about, I would definitely give an award. And she's amazing. She's incredible.
Okay.
Hopefully one day you'll be able to get her on the show. I'll tell her about it. Maybe I'll talk to her about it.
She follows me. Because I think Joan Jago posted something, or maybe it was 1980 T-shirt company posted, because I use a lot of her music on the Zim Excellence podcast account. When I post things, I use a lot of her music because I try to use Zimbabwean artists on that account. But I tagged myself in it because I have my own account, Vangai Official, follow me, y'all. And then I think 1980 T-shirt company reposted the reel I did when I got their merch, and I was using We Roll actually because I love that song. We roll. And then they tagged me, and then she followed me, and I was like, it's happened. Yeah, it was great.
No, that's amazing. No, as amazing as she appears to all people, she kind of amazing. She is. I remember going once to a lecture at SOAS, and there was a lecture happening about black hair.
That's my mom's school.
Is it? Look
my
at
mom went to SOAS, yeah.
Look at this. It's too much. But I went there, and they were just talking about black hair icons, blah, blah, blah. And the normal conversation came up about how we don't have examples of people wearing their natural hair. And they were like, does anybody know anyone who wears their natural hair? And then no one had anything to say. And then I was like, Shingai Shoniwa. And they're like, yes, oh my God, she's the only one. And I was like, I know she's the only one. It's my sister. She's the only one. Like,
yeah.
We've been repping and being authentic for so long that it's actually laughable. People want to claim that that's why it's hard for me to enjoy music, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, because I've been around music, I've been in music, I'm not constrained by genres or the way it's a sound when you're black or what's allowed or what's fashionable, because I have a sister whose music transcends genders and who was brave enough to be in a rock band and wear her hair natural and do all these things. We're same womb. We're coming from the same womb. Like what?
Shout out to your mom. The power.
I can't come here and hear your interpretation music, like your faux rapper music. Like when people come like, oh yeah, I'm MC. I'm like, are you? Like, do you know what I mean?
I can't. It's difficult for me to date musicians unless they're good.
Which is why I had to completely. No musicians, no drummers. Gone for a lawyer. I was like, let me just keep it 100.
I know, you froze. Can you hear me? Oh no. Can you hear me, Chipo?
Something happened.
Maybe it's my connection.
Hold up 1 second. Is that better? Are we now?
Yes. We're back now. You cut off musicians.
Yeah, I said I'm not doing any more drummers. Too much passion, too flaky. I want straight. Look, let's just have a lawyer. She's organized. Okay, fine.
There you go. Shout out to the fiance. Rhoda is coming soon. Oh, and a quick shout out to Ivan from 1980 T-shirt company, so that his name's out there. Thanks for the merch. All right. So, Dame Chipo, it was an honor and a privilege to have you in this space. As we wrap up, I would love it if you could share a message with our listeners, as well as letting them know where they can follow you, whether that's on Instagram, Twitter, all the things, TikToks, whatever. You don't have to spell it out. It's all going to be in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for staying with us on this journey. We've touched on so many things and spoken about loads of stuff. So just thank you for sticking with us. You can find me on social media at Dame Chipo. That's the same on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. The brand, girls, the brand. But otherwise, please follow the Black Actors Accent Room as well for all your accenting vocal needs. Otherwise, you can find me at bantucreatives.com, where you can see all of the different projects that I'm involved with. Or you could just email me direct and put me in your movie. That's another option.
Wonderful. You've heard her. You know where to find her. Put her in your movie. Chipo, thank you so much for coming on, love.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Thank y'all so much for coming to the party. Majita tatenda siabonga. Nah, for real. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Zim Excellence. If you found value from this episode, please share it with a friend and go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I'll make sure to give you a shout out on future episodes. Feel free to tag us on Instagram at Zim Excellence Podcast. And if you identify as Zimbabwean, I want to hear your story, so go ahead and email zimexcellencepodcast@gmail.com. Till then, have the best week and stay Zim excellent.